this is my passage. When I read through the questions, read through the passage, this is what mine looks like. Those of you that have extended time on the ACT or the SAT, your passage should look something like mine. Notice I'm talking to myself here. This is where a switch up occurs. I really circled where things shifted, but remember something from a question. I put a star next to it. Here they were listing 3 different things, so I numbered it. 1, 2, whoops, there were 2 there, and then here was the 1 more up here. Okay, how many of these are they going to give us? Paragraph action. Let's see. These little box-like things are when I go over the evidence, and they say, look at line 75 through 76. Go ahead and box that information off so I make sure I don't look at any information above it or below it. So again, those of you that don't have extended time, you may not have the time to box in like this when you're looking for answers, but something, just a real quick mark of some kind, and as you're skimming through, it's definitely the buts, however, yet, instead, there's yet, meaning, here about this, but there's yet another deal questions. But let me show you my questions as well. Okay, again, you'll notice from my pencil marks, these were when I went through the questions initially, and I tried to split up the questions, the main purpose of the passage, consider an ethical dilemma, and then the pose by cost-benefit analysis. That way I can try to eliminate it. Even though this part I wasn't sure of, I knew that it wasn't the cost-benefit analysis. So that second half of the answer choice is what enabled me to eliminate that as an answer. On this one, describe a psychological study and then of ethical economic behavior. Well, this part, the whole thing is about ethical economic behavior. So that second part of answer choice B is correct. But this part here, even though they make specific mention of describe a psychological study, I believe it was in that last paragraph, that was just a detail, okay? It wasn't the big picture. It wasn't what the whole thing was about. The entire passage wasn't focusing on a psychological study. And then here, argue something, and I was okay, argue that the free market prohibits ethical economics. Just by looking through the I was able to eliminate that as not, because they made the statement somewhere in the first paragraph, I think, argue that the free market, is good because people had choices. So that was kind of the opposite statement. But the big picture, what the whole thing was, generally about, examining different ways of evaluating the ethics of economics. And when you look back at that passage where I wrote, one more, they had given one way and then a second way, and then that top at line 45, if you look at your passage, and yet another aspect of, the ethics. So D obviously would be the correct answer for 11. But again, you can see over here too, when I first circled my answer, this one looked like the most reasonable for my reading, but then when I came down here to find evidence, I was like, okay, wait a minute, something's not making sense. And so I kind of went back, I reread the question and the answer choices, and then went back here and then realized my error, which again is why those of you with extended time, notice my question mark over here. Even though I circled B, I wasn't 100% sure. Even this one over here, I put a question mark by. So get into the habit, if you're not 100% sure, meaning if I were to say to you, what color are your eyes? And you tell me brown because you have brown eyes, then, and I say, no, they're not. And you say, yes, they are. And I say, no, they're not. I want you that sure when you go, yes, they are. There's nothing I could say, nothing I could do to tell you otherwise. That's how sure your eyes are brown, if they're brown. That's how I want you to be on your questions. So if you're not 100% sure, you put that question mark there, and when you're done with the test, you know which questions to go back and check. Or in this case, I'd do it before you even left the passage while it's fresh in your mind if you have extended time. And if you don't, if you answer all 11 questions and it's been, 12 minutes, take another 2 or 3 minutes and go back and look at some of those ones that you had question marks by. See if you can find a silly mistake. If I can do it, you can do it. Meaning if I can make mistakes, so can you.